All right, how's it going, everyone? Hope you're doing well. Here in Spain, it's getting pretty early in the morning here, but it's still really warm, about 40 degrees centigrade. But even though it's really hot, I decided to put on a shirt. Um, so if I start sweating, though, there's your reason why. Um, so this is a video that I've been wanting to make for a while, and I feel like before I even dive into it, I need to make a lot of disclaimers or give a lot of caveats because I feel like I'm going to get pushback, a lot of pushback from a lot of different angles. But I feel like that would just be a waste of time. And the concessions and the caveats and the disclaimers will sort of be made as we go along. And you'll see that I'm not trying to counter signal. Um, I'm not trying to undermine a particular um, a particular goal or worldview or idea or motivating factor. So let's just dive into it. I want to talk in this video about um, trad life or trad wives or this whole meme of revolt against the modern world, go live on a farm, marry a trad wife, and have 5 children. Um, so to begin, let's talk about why I'm not going to be counter signaling here. I do believe that raising a family is obviously beneficial for everyone involved. The family is the basis of a civilization, is the basis of culture. There's a reason why our enemies have chipped away at the family so much and have completely destroyed it now, because they know that the family unit is the basis, it's the pillar of a society, a civilization from which everything else is built from. Um, and I do believe that we need positive propaganda, positive imagery. Okay, so the pictures of cottages in the woods or children running on a farm playing with ducks or, you know, an attractive girl with a French braid standing in a wheat field. I get it. It's good that we have those images and that white positivity. We need it. We desperately need it. But propaganda is influential. That's its purpose at the end of the day, is to be influential. And I feel like there's my cat playing with toys. I don't know if you can hear her running along the floor there. Um, so I feel like we need to talk about the current state of relationships between men and women and the kind of world that it's like out there. Because if we don't talk about this, then we're essentially sending, particularly the young men in this movement, we're sending them to the slaughterhouse. And I'm going to be basing this off of what I'm going to say is going to be based off of my own personal lived experience, the lived experience of people I know, and then just general truths, general facts of modern life. Um, just the natural order of things, the way things are. And so when we talk about the need to go back to raising families and living in going to live on a farm and raising 5 kids and all that, it comes from sources of um, various sources of motivations, or there are various factors that are promoting this idea or prompting us to think like this. One is demographic replacement. So the idea is that the, the idea is that we're being replaced, and we need to go out and raise a bunch of families to keep up with these new arrivals that are outbreeding us. And I've addressed this in other videos. That's not something that we're actually going to win, okay? And I don't think we should be thinking about a breeding war with Africans and Middle Eastern Muslims. They've got a really good head start, and also there has never been more white people alive on this planet than right now. I think that bears repeating. There has never been more white people alive on planet Earth than there are right now, just by the sheer numbers. Okay? So we're not at risk of extinction. We are at risk of being replaced in our own lands, becoming minorities, and not having anywhere else to go. And then, of course, the way if the demonization keeps going and it's just open season on whites, of course, we can be genocided. Sure, I'm not denying that. But there are a large number of white people alive today, and we have a planet that is reaching nearly 8 billion people in total. Now, you can either agree or disagree that human population is too high and the planet can't sustain it. I'm kind of in between on both. I feel like humankind will adapt and there'll be technological advances that can deal with this. At the same time, humans are really the only species that pollutes and the only species that really takes a lot from the planet without putting too much back into it in general. So the idea that there might be, fewer humans isn't one that frightens me. Um, yet, let's also talk about why populations decrease. Okay, in times of great uncertainty or great stress, like wars, pandemics, right? In between big quotes there, pandemic, famine, drought, things like that. Populations go down. There's a baby bust. Okay, so if we're living in difficult times, uncertain times, I think I saw someone on Twitter talk about how white people aren't having kids because they look around and they don't see a world that's worth having children in it. Like why they have to work so hard just to make sure that the third world dindus get their benefits paid off of the backs of the working white classes. They can't afford to have kids. They've got no motivation to have kids. These are all very important factors. We're going to get to some other ones later, though. These are just some of the ones I want to get out of the way first. To explain why we're maybe in this situation, one of the reasons why we're in this situation in the first place. That is a justifiable reason. The justifiable reason is that we are in uncertain times. We've had economic recessions, nearly depressions, depending on what country you're living in. And those are all normal historical reasons for which there's a baby bust. Okay? So, we're talking about the white population. What condition is it in? Is it in a fragile state? By the numbers, not quite. But then we hear things like that just came out, this BBC article with the title that there's going to be a jaw-dropping population collapse. Okay, now population collapse is only a problem because the current system is a Ponzi scheme. It's a pyramid scheme. It requires a huge base of people to sustain it. The reason why the government wants you to wear a seatbelt and a helmet when you're cycling, and the reason why they want you to wear your mask and not get COVID, they don't actually care about your life. They just don't want you to die because you are a cog in the machine. You are a tax-paying unit. You are necessary for the GDP. So the reason why we need to have constant, never-ending mass migration, and the reason why a population bust is so terrifying for them is because the whole system is built on human capital. But, like I said, there are billions of people on this planet. And there are, I think, we could be at a billion white people. I know we're the global minority, but we could be up at least into those numbers. Okay. So there's all this talk of the population decline. I'm not worried too much about that. I'm worried about the demographic replacement. I'm worried about becoming minorities in our own countries, not having anywhere else to go, getting replaced. Okay, so let's get that out of the way now. I also have said in other videos that getting married, being in stable relationships, having children is beneficial, and it should be a goal for any millennial, any person in their mid 20s, getting to their 30s. They should be thinking about these things. Of course, life, nature kind of promote pushes you to start thinking about these things just naturally. But I don't want to. What I want to criticize, what I want to examine, is this idea that if you're not doing those things, then you aren't contributing to the cause. You aren't contributing to saving Western civilization or the white race. And I think that I'd like to know who are the people, like what is their age range, what is their life experience, the people who push this. Like, if you aren't getting married and having 5 kids, you're not doing it right. Um, you're not winning. Like, I want to know how old are you? Are you in your 60s and you've already had your life and you already got to live through you got the New Deal and you had economic boom and a totally different culture, totally different world, a totally different paradigm as far as the relationships between men and women are concerned. Because it's easy for you to say if you're of that era. There's really no comparison to what's going on right now, which is what we're going to talk about. Because it's all well and good to say, get married, raise a family, go live on a farm, and be trad. Although I have to say, this idea that we need to all retreat from our cities, and when we're talking about cities in Europe, we're talking about some of the most beautiful cities ever created by humankind. We don't need to, we shouldn't have to keep retreating. I think this isn't defeatism, this is retreatism, and I'm tired of it. At some point, we won't have any more corners to be backed into. You can move to the country, you can move to the middle of nowhere. They will find you. In countries like Spain and Italy, they have literally bussed third world dindus into these small towns and villages in the middle of nowhere. Okay, there will be no safe space. There will be no more places to go. So this idea of, yes, cities are miserable. I've lived in many cities and I'm done with them. I wouldn't go back to one in general. So the idea of leaving the cities, I don't criticize that. But this idea of let's leave the city and just live somewhere in the woods or on a farm in the hills and we'll be safe. What is that? We'll have no power, no influence. We'll have lost our cities. I don't like this retreatism, but that's a little bit neither here nor there. Okay, so why do I want to warn against too much of this propaganda? Well, even though it is positive propaganda and it is very nice to see, it inspires me when I see the propaganda of, and I'm using propaganda in a positive term here. Propaganda can be a positive thing. When I see I follow these accounts on Twitter, I follow them on Instagram. A happy white family in a cottage. When I see a very cool stylized photo of King Leonidas, yeah, sure, that motivates me to get in the gym and do my deadlifts. Yes, these are all wonderful, very inspiring things, which is the whole point, which is why we need to talk about this. This messaging will inspire people to make certain decisions and act in real life. But we need to talk about human nature. We need to talk about game. We need to talk about female nature. So I'm going to talk about the world as it is, and why we need to be careful with this messaging and be careful above all with this idea that if you're not getting married and you're not raising a family with loads of kids, you're not doing your part. And Jesus said to his disciples once, he said, live in this world, but do not be of the world. So what I want to talk today, what I want to talk about today is what is the world like right now, and how should we navigate it? How should we live in it without being of it? And from my experience, from what I've observed, what I've lived, what I've seen happen to the people, the world is not a good place right now as far as finding a woman who could be the mother of your children, as far as raising a family of multiple children. The world right now is not made, it's not functioning in a way that is conducive to those things for most people. So, what I want to talk about right now isn't so much the economic reasons, although we can get to that. I think that I already mentioned a little bit of that at the beginning, that there are some economic reasons why people aren't having kids. I've got a video called Decadent Serfs, in which I talk about that as well. In many countries, especially in Europe, you're doing well if you make 15 grand a year. Now, is 15 grand enough to support a family of three children? I don't think so. Not today, because there's many more demands. The system that we're living in, the world that we are living in, that we are obliged, forced to live in, but we must try not to be so much a part of because it's so decadent and decayed. But the world we're living in imposes many obstacles in the way of raising a family. There are many more demands that are seemingly unavoidable. And we're going to talk about some of them as well. They're not just economic. So what I've got noted down here, let's just start off with what is the culture like? And I'm going to be coming down pretty hard on the women. And the fact that I even need to make the disclaimer of saying I'm not a misogynist, I love women, I think women are lovely creatures, just goes to show how elevated and untouchable women have become that we can't even criticize them a little bit. We can't even observe that, hey, maybe not everything you gals are doing is very good. Maybe someone needs to guide you, give you some advice, point you in another path. Because as we're going to see, I actually do believe that in a way the future is female, and in a way the fate of the white people, the white race, Western civilization is in the hands of women, but in a way that they don't realize. The ones that give us those slogans that the future is female, women women are the future, and all that sort of thing. It very well may be the case, but not in the way they think. So one of the reasons why the culture is pretty miserable right now as far as relationships between men and women is because of that women have just become untouchable. You can't criticize them. And we notice this almost animosity now between the sexes, but it's mainly coming from women having animosity towards men. And you notice this in things like music lyrics. When it comes to music, I really enjoy the lyrics more than anything. I always really pay attention to lyrics. And that goes also for songs that I hear, pumped out in the pipe music in a bar, or playing on the sound system in a shopping center or something. I always just pay attention to the lyrics. I'm starting to sweat already. It's like 40 degrees centigrade, and it's already past 2 o'clock in the morning, but it's still... And I've got the windows open and everything, but what can you do? Oh well. So we see this in the lyrics of music like pop music, any of the female pop stars. All of them have more than one, various songs in which there are lyrics like, basically to the man, they're saying, don't talk to me, don't approach me. We're in the club. I don't want to talk to you. Don't waste my time. You're clearly not good enough for me. You don't have any right to approach me, to talk to me. I'm too good for you. Back off. You're embarrassing yourself. You're embarrassing me. Then there's other types of lyrics. It's like, you've got to do all these things to show that you're good enough for me. Pass all my tests. You know, buy me the ring. Put a ring on it. It better be a big ring because I'm worth it. And then there's other songs, and I'm not going to give you names of them, but these are all, you can type in the lyrics for yourself. I'm kind of paraphrasing here. There's other songs where they sing about, I'm not going to iron your clothes, I'm not going to be your mom, I'm not going to cook, I'm not that kind of woman. So we have this mindset of basically, being the woman, I offer nothing, I put nothing on the table except arrogance, pomposity, laziness, and a bit of animosity towards you. Wonderful. And that is the message, apart from various series and films as well, that most young women and beyond are inundated with daily. And it's not just American culture, it's everywhere. I laugh so much when I hear, it's sort of an ironic laugh, it's a bitter laugh, when I hear people saying, I'm just going to move to Europe and find myself a European girl. I hear Americans say this. As if Europe is somehow better off than the American situation. No, we're all drowning in the same American pop culture crap that you are. You've sent it everywhere, and we've all just started drowning in it. It's everywhere. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, the situation in Europe as well. So this idea that you can just go to Europe and get yourself a Tradwife here in some European country, sorry, but that's just not the case. It's not the case, and I know this because I've lived it. Okay, I've lived a sort of nomadic life. I've lived in various European countries. No, there are no trad European women just running around in wheat fields with French braids and polka dotted dresses waiting for you. All right. So you need to understand, we need to understand, our young people need to understand or be taught what things are like in this real world. And, including in this movement of people who want a better world, a better life, of people who understand the values of family, the need for it, who want to go forward with a vision of decency, purity, love. But many of us grew up without fathers, because that's just the way things are nowadays. And so maybe it's quite possible, it's beyond quite possible, that there are young men in this movement or interested in our ideas who don't have many male figures, much male influence in their lives. And then apart from that, our fathers and our grandfathers actually, I don't think, would have much advice to give us because the game has changed so much. The nature of male and female relationships, femininity and masculinity, has been totally subverted. And so we have to navigate this. So that was one part, just the cultural things that are going on. And then going on about the fact that, many of us were raised without fathers. Well, that's because of the phenomenon of single mothers. And I don't know what age range all of you are in. I'm in my 30s. And one thing that I have to think about now is that when I go forward looking at my life and my dating life and potential mates, I'm in my 30s now. And as you're getting older, as you're getting to this age range, you're going to come across a lot more single mothers, divorcees, okay? And I think it was the late Stefan Molyneux who gave the analogy of tape, that you are like a piece of tape, and when you are in a relationship, you stick to that person. When that relationship falls apart, or when that when that relationship results in heartbreak, or when there's betrayal or anything like that, and you unstick from that person, the next time you, that piece of tape, try to stick to another person, you're less adhesive. Tape, if you keep taking tape off, putting it back on the surface and taking it off and sticking it back on the surface, it doesn't stick as much each time. Each time it loses its adhesiveness. And I think that's a great analogy. We are like that, men and women, especially women. But people think men doesn't affect them. It affects us differently, but it does affect us. Just like aging, right? Men age like wine, women age like milk is one of the sayings I've heard, right? But we still both age. We're both going to age. And so these things, the natural order always wins out. You cannot be a whole person if you've bonded, whether profoundly or not so profoundly, with many, many, many other people. So if you're a young man in your 30s or getting there, and you are inspired to take up this cause to defend your people, to safeguard their existence, to safeguard the existence of your countries, your nations, um, and raise a family, what are you going to be working with? What are the potential mothers of your children going to be like if they are also in their 30s and they have had 6 relationships, and not counting all the various flings, one night stands, Tinder hookups? Okay, do you want that to be the mother of your children? That's the world we're living in today. So when you say to someone, go out and get married and raise 5 kids and live on a farm and walk through wheat fields, with who? And we need to talk about this. We need to be careful and understand reality, because a relationship that crashes upon the people who form that relationship, a betrayal, um, or just even an amicable split for various reasons, can result in total upheaval. And it can be very difficult to come out of that. So that I mentioned it earlier, if we don't talk about this, if we're just going to send out the message that you need to get married and raise a big family, or you're not doing your part, well, then we're just sending people to the slaughterhouse, because the situation has changed. And I'm going to talk about things that I've been blown away with, and I'm not a prude. And I've lived a lot in my 30 odd years, um, and I've gone through various phases. And I don't actually think I'm not a good person. In some ways, I'm actually a pretty bad person. And I've done hedonistic things. I've done egotistical things. I've lived the way our culture. I've lived the lifestyle that our decadent culture promotes. But even if I live that way, I still have seen, heard, observed things that even blow me away. And I just think, one day, some guy is going to think that girl would make a good wife. And he's not going to have any idea of the shit she's done. One day, some guy is going to ask this girl that I'm seeing doing unspeakable things on the dance floor of a pub. He's going to ask her to marry her and be the mother of his children. And she has no shame. No, not even in public does it matter. Okay? And just, use your imagination. Okay? Yeah, that's another thing. There is no shame in society. So, we'll come to that later. So, right, as you're getting older, you have less to work with. Okay? Now, if you're in your 20s, and you're a young whippersnapper, this isn't something you need to worry about so much. But our culture says that your 20s are basically for going crazy. Drunken nights, parties, drugs, sex, endless, all of it. Now, I would love to know. Well, let me phrase differently. In the manosphere, in red pill circles, and let's remember that the red pill came from the men's rights activist movements. This idea of the red pill, like this is, I think our movement needs to engage a bit more with manosphere, men's rights, game type content creators or writers or speakers, because I think it very much dovetails with what we would like to see happen. You know, a rebirth, literally, in some ways, of families and bonding and relationships. But if we don't understand the current nature of the birds and the bees, we're not going to have much success. Our people are going to end up being hurt. And I don't want that to happen. I'm here to speak as someone who wants to give you guys warnings. So if you want to come in and criticize me for the things I'm saying, if you want to criticize me for the criticisms I'm making, that's fine. But always remember, I'm doing this because I want people to avoid the mistakes I've made, or to avoid the not so lovely things that have happened to me, or that I've had to go through. Right? I think that's if we lived back in the days of communities and elders and had father figures and things like that. These are all things that we would talk about, by the fireside. But now we do it on YouTube. So this is my service to you guys. Okay. Also, another thing that I've got here is this idea that we'll raise all these kids. Well, who will raise them? This is going back to the economics. Well, actually, let me finish the idea that was going on about what I'd like to know. What I'd like to know about women being what they're being taught. What are girls being taught? Because in the manosphere that I was mentioning, there's plenty of men who are really hard on other men, and they tell them, do the work, go to the gym, stop lying on the sofa and playing video games all day, stop complaining. I've mentioned this in other videos too. I've mentioned a video about what we can do in our personal lives. It was mainly directed at men, at young men, saying, learn something, be useful, go to the gym, be strong, be fit, be capable. And that is basically the path, the correct masculine path. And if you're not doing that, then you need to examine yourself and motivate yourself and get up and start. Because we do have this generation of feminized men, effete, ineffective, ineffectual, lazy, soft men. And of course, like the saying goes, weak men bring about hard times. We're living in that. But I don't know if there's much content, whether it's on YouTube, whether it's somewhere on the internet, whether it's in books, or certainly you're not going to find it in music, as I mentioned. You're not going to find it in television series or films. What are girls being taught? What is the advice that's being given to girls? Because it seems to me like the advice being given to girls is do whatever the fuck you want. Go crazy. No shame. Nothing holding you back. And there's also no consequences. None of your behavior is going to result in any consequences, girls. You're all going to be fine. You're all going to come out at the other end of that 24-hour bender, of that anonymous hookup, of that foursome. You're going to come out of that at the other end of that just fine. No damage. Especially if you do it repeatedly. Why not? No harm done. This is not true, girls. Like, I know people. I have female friends. I have female acquaintances. I've seen I've seen how they live their lives. I've seen them go out on a night and desperately look to just hook up with some guy. They just want to hook up with a guy that night. That's the goal. Same as guys do. We're going to go out. That's the whole point now of going out, is to hook up. And it's a different guy every night or every weekend. Okay? Keep that in mind. That's the future mother of your children. That's the girl in the polka dot dress in the wheat field. It's not. And I'm coming down hard on this because someone's got to. So I would like to know if there's anyone out there telling girls in the prime of their life, in their 20s, that no, this is not the time where you should be getting blackout drunk every weekend. This is not the time where you should be on Tinder having a random hookup every time you feel horny. Just fetch a guy off Tinder. It's the time where you should be having some high standards for yourself and for the young men around you in your life and lock down the best one because you'll never be more attractive. You'll never be more valuable to him. You'll never have more allure and more potential to attract and keep the best man possible. And if men are being told to raise their game and raise their level and get back to being the best men possible, and by the way, most men still, most good men are still following the archetypal, the paradigm of a good masculine man. It hasn't really changed much. And good men are still doing all the things that their fathers and grandfathers and great grandfathers did. Capable, know how to fix things, give 100% to their loved ones, their wives, their children, be hardworking. But what are women doing? Most women I know don't know how to cook. They don't do anything domestic because it's considered what? Oppressive, sexist, or they just, they don't know. They weren't taught and they're not interested. They can put in a microwavable meal and that's it. They've got dinner. They can buy a Roomba and they've got the floor clean. Okay. So you, young man, are still trying to follow the path laid out by great men, our ancestors. You're still doing your bit, but are there any women going to be meeting you halfway? What are they putting on the table? It seems to me that the only thing women are putting on the table these days is sex, and it's destroying them. It's destroying them as the mothers, the future mothers of our children. And if you sell something too much, if you put it too much out into the market, it loses its value. So now sex has become worthless. The sex appeal of women, what appeal does it really have anymore? It doesn't matter. I can get sex. I tell this all the time to my friends that I've got. Some of them, they sometimes moan about, how do I approach a girl, or some of them are still a bit timid, or most people I know are single. Everyone is single, so we're still going through this. Oh, if you see that girl over there, no, go talk to her. Oh, I don't know if I can. Even though we're all getting to our 30s. And I always tell them, like, there's nothing easier than picking up a girl these days. There's nothing easier than having a random hookup. It's become so valueless. The sexual act, getting sex, getting laid, has become nothing. Like, and I'm not saying this to be boastful that I can get a girl or whatever, because it's not that difficult. It's easy, okay? That's the world we're living in. That's how this thing has gone. It's gone so topsy-turvy. Maintaining a relationship is what takes a long time, or is what takes more work now. When I say maintaining a relationship, I mean not even maintaining it, just staving off all of the decadency and temptations and avoiding the bad apples, okay? But the society we live in right now is one in which you can go out any weekend, and if you have two neurons to rub together and are decently good looking and have a little bit of confidence, you will get laid every weekend or any night. It could be a weeknight, it doesn't matter, okay? And I don't know if people of previous generations are aware of this. I don't know. I don't know what they're teaching their daughters. I don't know it seems to me like most parents are completely unaware of what their daughters are doing. You would hope that they were unaware, because if they are willingly permitting that their daughters behave this way, that's actually worse. Because the things that I see women in their 20s or early 20s, mid 20s, late 20s getting to, the things I see them doing, or the things I know that they do, or the things I've engaged in with them, are, in some cases, quite disgusting, quite shocking. And I wouldn't want some young man who's inspired to go out and get fit, get jacked, learn a craft, learn a skill, learn a trade, go out there and get married to a great woman and raise 5 kids and save the white race. And he's going to end up getting stuck with or getting trapped by someone like that. And you think, oh no, it's easy to tell. No. We're going to get to that now. So let me see what else I've got here on the talking points. I'm going to try and go through them quickly. This video is already getting pretty long, but I hope you guys are staying with me. All right, well, good. The next point is fake trad. Okay, another criticism I could make of this whole Tradiphilia, which will be the title of this video, Tradiphilia. It seems like it's a lot of LARPing as well. Okay, I've worked on farms in the middle of nowhere. I've, picked up a backpack and traveled around Europe and did any job that was available. And I've worked on farms. I've been in the middle of nowhere, and it's lovely if you have the mindset for it. I'm not going to say that's hard work either, because it's just work. Okay, it's not it's not necessarily harder than other jobs I've done or easier. In fact, in many ways, I enjoyed working on vineyards and working on farms more because I like being outdoors and I like physical activity. But if you don't have the mindset for it, if you don't have the personality for it, no, it's not for you. We're not all just going to run off and live in the countryside, live in villages in the hills, or work on farms. Okay, there's animal shit. There's weird smells. It's weird hours. You're going up at 3 o'clock in the morning because you gotta milk the goats. Okay, and we don't all need to live like that. It's not for everyone. So this idea that I'm trad. I'm gonna I want a girl who spends all day in the farmhouse kitchen making muffins while I herd the sheep. Like, we have to be realistic here, okay? I love the past. I love the quaint lifestyle. I do idealize the past. I don't think I have rose-tinted glasses, but I, in many ways, think the past was much better than the time we're living in now. But I have to adapt to the time I'm living in now. Like Gandalf says, we all wish we could live in different times, but that is not for us to decide. All we have to decide is what to do with the time that's given to us. More or less, that's what he says, right? Okay, so I'm not knocking the idea in itself of traditional life, traditional gender roles being better than this modern mess of a thing that we're dealing with now. Of course not. But is it a viable, tenable, achievable option for most people? No. Most people live in cities. Most people need to live in cities. Most people don't have the skills to just up and start anew in the countryside, nor do they have the financial means to do it. It isn't a cheap thing to do. Okay, so again, what I want to suggest is let's not declare that the people who don't do this aren't pulling their weight or are letting us down or letting down the cause. There are other things that we can do, and we're going to get to that at the end. So in that sense, I see a lot of this trad stuff as a bit just fake. It's a bit just LARPing, okay? The guys who run the Instagram accounts or the guys who run the Twitter accounts that put up beautiful pictures of, cottages in the woods. Where do they live? They probably live in a 2-bedroom flat in a big tower block in a city. And that's not a knock on them. I'm not criticizing for that. It's just because that's where most people live. And if they don't live there, fine, I'll eat my words. But statistically speaking, that's probably where they live. Okay? And like I said again, there's nothing wrong with living in a city. Many of the cities in the West are wonderfully beautiful. And they have benefits to living in them. So that's one thing. The other thing with the trad comes to the point we were talking about earlier of how can you tell who is a sloot and who's a trad girl? And it's not as easy as you think. And I see this on Twitter sometimes too, and I get into these comments every now and again. And because I follow like some manosphere accounts as well, and some red pill stuff like that, as far as relationships go. And if one person says, "Now you can't trust women these days," that I'm glad you got your unicorn and you're happy with her, but I mean, there's even a expression nowadays that's become common parlance. She's not yours; it's just your turn. Okay, like let that sink in. That is a common expression that everyone knows. No one's like, if someone says that, they're not going, "Where'd you come up with that?" It's a known expression now. It's not your turn, or it's not. She's not yours. It's just your turn with her, and you weren't the first, and you're not going to be the last. Okay, so you'll see someone give that expression. So, well, no, nah, just get jacked and be confident, and you'll be the leader, and the women will flock to you. Sound good women. Okay, yes, sure they will. All women will flock to alpha men. It's natural. It's the natural order of things. Totally agree. But this idea that you think that out there are these unicorns, these wonderfully pristine, respectful, feminine women, and they'll just give you some signals that can distinguish them. Not necessarily. So let's talk about where I live, which is a small town, or a big town, you might say. About 20,000 people, but it's all very, very small. I don't need a car to go anywhere. Everyone kind of knows each other. So even though it has a population that's in the tens of thousands, it's a very small town feel, and physically it's very small. You can go from one end to the other. And this is in a country that is supposedly, it's nominally Catholic. Okay, but all these girls that live here, all these young women with crucifixes on their necklaces, all these Catholic girls, they're not what can I say? They're not any really different. All right. Um, I mean, I know Catholic women who are in favor of abortion. That's the level we're at, guys, my friends. It doesn't mean anything to be a Catholic anymore. It doesn't mean anything to be a conservative. We all know that conservatives today are just where the left was 10 years ago. And conservatives 10 years from now will be where the left is today. So it doesn't mean it. Oh, I met a girl and she says she's conservative, she's a Catholic. What? How does she live out those values? What is it exactly about Catholicism that she follows? What is she conserving? And I'm not lying to you. I'm not kidding you around. I know Catholic girls. I've been with Catholic girls who have body counts in the high double digits. Okay? They've got no problems cheating. They've got no problem jumping from bed to bed. They've got no problem with hookups. They're on Tinder and they're in favor of abortion. But yeah, they'll say, yeah, I'm a Catholic, I'm conservative. Okay? And you'll find out all that shit about them when it's too late. And that's what I'm trying to warn you guys against is I don't want to see our people suffer. The people in this movement that we're trying to, like, we have such idealistic goals and really, and I'm not meaning idealistic in that they aren't achievable. I'm saying we have great goals. We want something so good. Good life, decency, that we exist. That we exist unmolested in our lands. We can follow our own paths with self-determination and happiness and family love. These are wonderful things. And I don't want you, in your attempt to achieve them, to suffer. Now, we all have to suffer at some time, and suffering makes us better in many ways, right? The sword has to be beaten and forged in fire in order to be made sharp and to gleam in the light and cut through the enemies. But, like I said before, a relationship that goes south, a betrayal, and we'll talk about divorce, the world we're living in, the way the divorce systems in all Western countries are. can ruin a life completely. And when we talk about, you know, male suicide rates, we all know how high the numbers are. What is the number one cause of male suicide? Divorce, losing everything, giving up, deaths of despair. I don't want that for us. I don't want that for you. So that's why I'm making this video. Okay, so this idea that you're just gonna you can go to Europe and go to Poland as if the Polish girls are any different. Okay, I've been to Poland. Polish girls like to party too. Everywhere's the same, guys. I'm sorry to tell you. Yes, I'm sure that out there are pockets. I'm sure out there are individuals who are different, and pendulums swing, and we could be living in a time where the pendulum has been very much on the side of hedonism and degeneracy and egoism, and it's swinging back the other way. And in a few generations, there might be young people, young men and women, who don't want to just have random hookups every weekend and don't want to use Tinder to find their next partner. But right now, we're not there yet. So this idea that, oh, I'll just go to Poland and get myself a trad Catholic wife. No, okay, it's not realistic. You can try, okay? Good luck to you. I do wish you well, but I think you're being a little more than just quite naive. Okay, so because, and the reasons are because what it means to be conservative, what it means to be Christian, what it means to be Catholic has all been completely subversed. It's all been completely tarnished and made worthless. Okay, so no, it's not that you can just tell easily who are the sleuths and who are the trad girls, the trad wives. No. And in many cases, the trads are faking it. And going back to the idea that the women will follow the lead of an alpha male. So, in my experience, I've been with women, and I let them know and clear, like, these are my values, these are my standards. I don't look to get with feminists, but most, or at least many, women are, or in some way entertain feminist ideas and values. And I make it clear what my values are, and I don't really have much tolerance for that shit. And many of them will stay around because women do mold themselves and adapt and follow the lead of a confident man. But what that means is, in some ways, they could be faking it. So, and we don't know anything about their past life. If you demand or expect of your significant other that she lead a life that's, more traditional and respects traditional gender roles, that's fine. But you don't know how she lived in the past, and that will affect your relationship. That will affect her. It affects her ability to bond. And you can look for even the scientific studies that have been done. Female ability to pair bond decreases with every relationship. It even decreases with every one night stand. Okay? And, if you are the man and you're leading, okay, that's fine. And in fact, in many ways, women aren't necessarily that political as well. Like typically politics and this sort of thing tends to interest men more, just naturally. And I always see people talk about we need more women in the movement, or we need female leaders. Why? I can't think of many historical movements, rebirths, revolutions, resistance, which required or which benefited greatly from a significant female presence. It's not necessary. Women need to see what men are doing and then just follow. Ideally, naturally. Okay, so what does that mean? That means that women are adaptable in their values. What I'm trying to say is, if you are a confident man, you're an alpha male, and you make it clear what your values are, and you make it clear what you expect of a woman, regardless of what her past life might be, or what her values are, and she adapts to you, that's fine. But we don't know if those are her genuine values, and at any moment she could relapse, you might say. And there's a lot of temptation out there for her to do so. So again, when I see these macho men giving little, one sentence catchphrases, to sort of just, make themselves look like they've all got this taken care of, or maybe, like I said, they're from another generation, and it was easy for them to be a dominant, confident alpha male, get the good girl, marry her, and keep her, right? But, now we're dealing with Instagram. Now we're dealing with Tinder. Now we're dealing with hypergamy, out of control hypergamy. It's not quite the same situation. And you can fight me on this if you want, and we can get into this in the comments, or maybe I'll have to make a part 2 and expound on these details, because this video is it's already pretty long, but we're gonna keep going. And I'm not gonna cede much on this. The game has changed, and I know this because people I talk to that are slightly older than me or very much older than me have told me. I have friends that are about 10 years older than me, in their 40s, divorced, getting back into the dating game, and they are shocked to see what it's like. Because it's not the same as when they were 20 in the dating game. There's been a huge change just in the past decade. If I think about how things were in 2010, and I look at how things are now, it's crazy, the difference is. Okay, so things have changed a lot just in 10 years. And when I talk about what is crazy is just the fact that hypergamy is everywhere. Women are literally out of control. There is no shame. There is no controlling mechanism on our behavior. There is no compromise. Sorry, that's a Spanish false friend. Sorry. There's no dedication, devotion to a partner. It's all just live in the moment. If the things are going good in the moment, it's fine. The second that it's not going good in that moment, look for someone else. Do you, YOLO. Why should you have to suffer a relationship that doesn't make you happy? These are things I see, constant messaging. I also see lots of messaging that says, love yourself, self-love, great, yes. Because, it's gotten to the point where now most people are just giving up on relationships, so they don't have that they don't have intimacy, they don't have that love from another person, so they have to resort to just self-love. I love myself, treat yourself. And that's fine to some extent. You do have to love yourself, be confident in yourself, and know thyself before you can bond with another person. You have to deal with what you have to deal with before you do so. That's true. But I do think that behind all of these messages, I see it on T-shirts, I see it on billboards, I see it in the windows of shops. Love yourself today. It's because they're not getting love from anyone else. It's all that's left for them is to love themselves, because no one else is going to do it for them. There is no one else. All right. So I think we've talked about the sort of the fake trads and okay. So we're getting into the topic now of not being able to criticize female behavior, and female behavior is literally out of control. There is no control. I just mentioned that I live in a small town where everyone knows each other in a nominally Catholic country. So you would think that there would be some modicum of restraint on behavior. Everyone knows everyone. The gossip gets around town. We all know what people get up to. This is a Catholic country, so you're going to be expected to uphold some conservative values. No, man. No. Everyone in this town that I live in has slept with everybody. It's like friends. Okay? It's pretty funny sometimes. And again, like I said, I'm not a good person. I'm not telling you how to live your life. I'm telling you, if you want to achieve these things, these are the things to look out for. And I'm not a good person, and I'm not telling you what to do, and I've done things that maybe I'm proud of, maybe I'm not proud of, but like I can tell you that there have been times where I have been at social gatherings, and I look around and there's I've had relations with the majority of the women at the gathering. Okay, this is a small town where everyone knows everyone. Okay, so what I'm getting at is um, there is no shame. There is no shame to having a high body count. There is no shame to a woman having slept with dozens upon dozens of men. Many people I know have had threesomes and foursomes, both men and women. It's nothing shocking to them. It's okay. Um, so these are things that you need to know, that you need. And I'm not saying this to, again, counter signal or counter signal white positivity. I think we need to hear positive messaging and also redemptive messaging. One of the great things about the Christian religion is the redemption aspect of it. Now, I mentioned in that same video about what you can do in your personal life, how we can rebuild and save Western civilization. I talked about how I went through periods in my life where I was a shy, quiet, timid guy who had no luck with the girls. Then I went through a period of sort of hedonism and, um, I went and got lots of girls, okay? And now, um, and then quickly I realized that that life could actually, it was not a path I wanted to stay on, and it was really gonna result in burnout and that tape that can't stick anymore, and I could feel it doing something to my spirit, and I was able to put an end to it. And I do prefer now to find and be with someone in a long-lasting relationship, and I think the ideal, like I said at the beginning of this video, the ideal is obviously stable relationships with one partner, have as few partners as possible. But I think we do need to. I'm not demanding that you all be virgins, and I don't think that's realistic. I'm not even sure that it's entirely useful. I have some conflicting opinions because I do think that you need to meet people, be with people, have experiences in order to know what you want and what you don't want, and what to avoid, and what you need to learn from experience. Okay? But the ideal is have a few partners, get all that sorted, and then pair bond with a person, have a long, stable, healthy relationship, raise a family. Obviously, that's the ideal. I don't want you to think that I'm going against that. Um, so how do we get there though? In a world where most people have lots of skeletons in their closet, lots of bad experiences, they might have children from other marriages, they might have had such terrible breakups or gone through such terrible divorces that they are not the same person that they used to be. They barely made it out alive. The redemptive aspect of Christianity says that there's always a second chance, a third chance, that just because you were a sleut or a player doesn't mean you can't be a mother, a loving mother, a loyal wife, or um, a hardworking, decent man who's willing to sacrifice and put away all those player tendencies. Because I could say that I'm living proof of that redemptive aspect, of that redemption, of going from one path that's not very good and putting my feet back on a more stable, more healthy, pure path. I'm not saying that. I'm not denying that redemption to anyone. I'm simply saying that we need to understand the nature of the game and what's out there. Right now, female nature, the nature of the game, female nature is unhinged. I don't mean females are unhinged. I mean female nature is not being given any sort of controlling, there's no controlling mechanism. Most men are controlled by societies in many ways that keep us in check. Right? I could say that, for example, it's the natural way of things for the human male to just want to fuck everything and inseminate everything. But society, for the most part, has imposed upon men um, monogamy, fidelity. In my lived experience, and in the things that I've observed, um, if a man cheats, he is almost always considered a scumbag. He can lose his friends. Everyone takes the girl's side. And I'm not saying that I've ever cheated when I say my experience. These are things that I've heard, things that I've seen. Though the man is ostracized, he's a scumbag. If a woman cheats, she has a reason. People listen to her reasons. She wasn't being satisfied. Her needs were being met. And those needs could be sexual. Those needs could be financial. They could be mental. Like she wasn't feeling mentally comfortable around him, emotionally comfortable around him anymore. He lost his spark or his charisma, or his strength that kept that thing going together, and she needed that, and that wasn't there. So whatever the case is, she has a reason. People will listen to it and accept it. She's not considered a scumbag. Some people might, say that, but in general, no. Then we see women today. A lot of them talk about, it's man's nature to go out and fucking all that stuff. So why can't women do it too? Oh, it's a double standard. No, it's not. It's not a double standard. I don't know if I came up with this. I don't know who told it to me. I think it was an Irishman who told it to me. Men are keys, women are doors. A key that can open any door is a very, very valuable key. A door that can be opened by any key is worthless. And that's pretty much the nature of male and female sexual relations here. So there isn't a double standard. And again, most men don't go around fucking all the women. And there are statistics that show this, that actually like 80% of women only go for 20% of men. Only 20% of men are actually getting any action. Especially nowadays with more and more hypergamy and female nature being completely the way it is, out of control. So, for most men, they are very happy to be with their partner, their female partner, and they're content with that, and more than content. They're quite happy. They got their girl, and they're very happy to continue on. Very few, this idea that men are just going around cheating on their wives and girlfriends all the time. No, actually, I'm beginning to think that the opposite is true. That it's just another one of those lies that the other side projects. Accuse your enemy of what you yourself are doing. So, in any case, even if that were to be true, like I said, society kind of keeps that in check. And to the extent that an alpha male player, a guy who does go around getting lots of girls, not being necessarily disloyal to them or anything like that, but just goes around doing that, of course it's not a double standard, because of course he has to put in a lot of work to do that. Well, nowadays it's a lot easier, as I said, but traditionally, a man that could get any woman must have a lot going for him. Whereas, especially today, all a woman has to do to get any guy, pretty much, is just walk out and raise her hand. Anyone want to fuck me? Anyone want to take me home tonight? So it's not the same. It's not a double standard. Now, what is uncontrolled about female nature right now is that they want to be able to live like men and do all these things and have no consequence. But we don't think the same way. Men and women don't look at each other the same way. We don't evaluate each other the same way. And, some stupid guys out there might like a girl that's been with lots of guys because maybe she's really good in the sack. But I don't know many men who, when it comes down to, choosing mother material, wife material, would be very happy knowing that their wife or this potential mother of their children has a body count of 57, 100, 200. Like, The stuff that girls are getting up to in colleges, universities, every day for 4 or 5 years of their lives. I mean, again, use your imagination. You know the videos exist. You know the stories exist. I don't need to tell you. Okay, so can those people be redeemed? Sure, sure. People can atone and realize what they've done and try and get back on a better path. But to a certain extent, like I know in my case personally, after the things I've gone through and the things I've seen and the things I've observed, I have a lot of issues with trust. I don't have much confidence in women these days. I have a very high guard, and in other ways too, I'm just tired. Like it's very exhausting to go through one relationship and then another, and try to avoid the pitfalls of the previous ones. And I said earlier that it's very soul crushing to do the whole club scene, party scene, and just have anonymous hookups on weekends or party nights. So all that does take its toll. You can redeem yourself. You can be redeemed if you believe in the Redeemer. But sin has its price, if you want to call it that. Okay, actions have consequences. All right. So let's see what else. Okay, shared values. I was sort of talking about this earlier. Like, how are you going to share values? Is it possible to find someone who shares your values? Could be. We talked about this. I talked about this. Maybe they just adapt to your values but don't really share them. In which case, do they really believe and mold themselves to you and your beliefs, or is it just pretend? Now, the reason why that's now on the list is because how does that um, interact with raising a family? And this is what we're going to talk about. What I was getting into earlier about the obstacles that get in the way, the system. So let's imagine that you're the alpha male, you've got your values, you're a nationalist, you're an ethno-nationalist, you're a traditionalist, you're a conservative, whatever. And the girl you're with, you're now married, and she's going to be the mother of your children. She never really signed up or joined up with you on any of those values. She just sort of accepted them. Okay, that's how you are. All right. I'm not really a political. That's what he believes. We don't talk about it. Whatever. Okay. That's the most likely scenario, by the way. Or she has totally opposite beliefs. Well, now it's time to raise children. For example, would you send your children to public school? Where I was born, in the United States, in Illinois, LGBT nonsense is now mandatory in the curriculum of the Illinois public schools. Okay, so let's imagine a situation where now you say, no, we're going to homeschool. I'm sorry to tell you, but I don't think that the vast majority of women my age, for at least, are capable, nor do they want to do that. And if you live in places where homeschooling is not permitted, it's not even an option to begin with. Do the people who push this idea that you need to get married and raise 5 kids, have 5 kids and raise them with your values, are they aware of the reality of this situation? It's not just as easy as putting up pretty pictures of families outside of cabins. Someone's going to be educating your children. In many places, it's not allowed to be you. Okay? So, you have those 5 kids, and it's going to be 5 battles, 5 constant battles to make sure they don't get paused by the utter filth and lies that are being pumped into them in the school system. And if you live in a place where homeschooling is an option, finding a partner who's going to want to take that path with you could be quite difficult. Now, America is a big country. America's homeschooling is legal. There's 330 million people. Americans usually tend to be the ones that I think push back on this. I think there might be some areas of America where traditionalism and homeschooling and all that is still very alive and well, and even probably having a resurgence. Europe is a lot more secular. Europe is a lot more secular, and Europe is my focus because I think America is, in many ways, um, in many ways, it is kind of the source of Western civilization's problems. And American pop culture is just pathetic, and it's everywhere. And um, so I don't really focus on America so much, and I want to safeguard Europe. And I mentioned this before in my other videos of my ethnicity and where I live and who I am and why that is the way it is. Okay, so if you live in America, yes, it could be much more easy for you to homeschool. It might be much more easier for you to find someone who's down with that trad American wife. Okay. At the same time, I did live in America, and American girls are famously slutty. American girls outside of America have the reputation of being easy. Okay, so I'm not quite sure that. As I'm saying, I'm not quite sure that America is better off here, but I do concede that maybe there are pockets of America where this is more feasible. However, in Europe, I don't think so. Not on the whole. Okay, so for our Europeans, what are they going to do? Who is going to be spending most of the time with the kids that we're trying to raise? Modern life requires that both parents are working, and that the state raises the kids, that the public school system raises the kids, that a daycare, the kids are raised there. Now, we can fight against this tooth and nail, and here in this small town, a lot of times, new parents drop their kids off at the grandparents' house, which is walking distance away from their home. Okay, that's why I like living here. It is in some ways a more rural and more traditional type of life. Actually, this is the place where I'm living at now is the longest I've ever stayed in one area in all my life. So I'm here for a reason. But for those of you who don't live near your grandparents, and we're trying to fight against having the state raise our kids, having them be raised by a public school system or raised in a daycare, how do we avoid this? These are things that we need to think about. And I'm not saying this to, again, counter-signal white positivity. I'm just saying before impressionable young people, I was getting very personal here. I wanted this. I wanted to, and I never wanted it before. Like I said, I went from being very shy and timid and like that, then to being quite a player. And I've always been very suspicious of feminism. And I even wrote in a journal once as a young boy, like I think it was in my early teens, like reasons to not get married. I didn't see the point, and I was very, very suspicious of it all. And I was a bit precocious too, and getting this sort of hard heart at a young age. And because I just seen great men get ruined by divorces, and great men get ruined by nagging wives. Or it didn't have much appeal from what I was looking at in stories, and in the real life couples that I looked at, my own parents even. I'm sorry to say, it just didn't appeal, and so I was against it until you meet that person and you think it's going to be, oh, okay, this is going well. Oh, now I see why people want to do this thing of getting married and raising a family. And then of course that sort of, it all happened simultaneously with my return to conservative values and my desire to resist global homoism and save Western civilization and our people. And yeah, the imagery and the propaganda and the positive messaging motivated me to actually really think about getting married and raising a family any way possible. I'm not the richest man in the world. I'm not. I'm actually closer to the poorest than the richest. Okay, but I was going crazy thinking. I was like, okay, I'll just work harder. I'll work another job. I'll monetize this channel eventually or something like that, right? Well, it turns out the girl I was with was like the one I was talking about earlier. These fake Catholic conservatives that have high body counts, are totally hypergamous, and what can you do? What can you do? This is the world we're in. So I don't want impressionable, um, you know, rearing at the bit young men in this movement to feel like, yeah, that they get that same inspiration from the positive messaging and from the stylized pictures of, traditional families. Which way, Western man? It's a picture of degeneracy, and then the picture of a homely, loving white family from the 1940s. Okay, it's great messaging. In fact, it's so good that it can promote people to act. But if they don't know how the world is, if they don't know how to live in the world while not being of the world, they can be destroyed. They can be really harmed. I have been making videos for a long time because after the breakup with the girl that I mentioned, I was living in a cave underground. I was living under a kebab shop with no Wi-Fi. Because a breakup can turn your whole life upside down. The path that you were on and the thing you were building just collapses. It disappears into dust in a fraction of a second, and you're left picking up the pieces. And I don't want that to happen to the people, the young people that are turning to us, that are coming to this movement of turning against the degeneracy and the globalism and all that. And I do think it's happening. I mean, my real life job is I'm a teacher, and I teach all ages, and I teach teenagers, and I see teenagers are totally against political correctness. They're very edgy, and here in Spain, they're very patriotic. They're fed up with the separatist movements, and they're fed up with the feminist matriarchs and nannies bearing down on them all the time. And so yeah, and I tell them, don't watch porn, don't go around shagging each other all the time. Like, be sensible, right? And I'm glad that I can impart that wisdom, that I, lived wisdom, things I've learned through experience, so that they don't have to suffer those things. Okay, that's the point of this video. Just to repeat it one more time. Okay, what else is on the list here? Okay, so we need to think about, who's going to educate these children that we're having. All right, um, you know, I don't know if there are political solutions. I don't know if there are cultural solutions. I don't know. I think this is going to be one of the videos where I don't have any solutions for you. I'm just blackpilling, I guess. Okay? Forgive me, but that's what it is. I don't know. We can form communities, online communities, real world communities, but will we have autonomy? Will we be separate from the state school board? I don't think so. I don't want us to get Waco'd, okay? So we need to think about this, like, who's going to educate these children that we're having? I'm not offering solutions. I'm just talking about things to keep in mind and reasons why we shouldn't shame people for not getting married and not having children. It's not for everyone, especially nowadays. Okay, so we talked about the thing with working parents, all this sort of stuff. Okay, yeah, empowerment, indoctrination, women. I think we talked about this earlier. They're all about empowerment, and they don't know how to cook because if they cook, it's sexism, it's machismo, it's oppression. Okay, and yeah, I've seen the meme. Who deceived women? Who convinced women that it is liberation to work in an office for a dickhead boss but it's oppression to raise a family at home, to stay home and raise a family and love your husband, and that's oppression. Like, who convinced women of this bullshit? But they're all into it. Okay. Um, Again, in my own personal experience, the amount of women who I know, and some of them are dear friends, and some of them are women that I had relationships with, who are seriously wasting the best years of their life studying, trying to attain some job. Every time it's got to be they or trying to get more degrees, qualifications. It's never enough. And meanwhile, they're losing their eggs. They're starting to get lines around the eyes. Their relationships aren't working out. And then I know women who have really no desire to be mothers, no desire to get married. If you look on my Instagram page, that I haven't been paying attention to for a long time, but I shared a meme. It's a Spanish meme, and it said things I want to do this summer, and for all the words, things I want to do this summer. There was pictures of theme parks, beaches, parties, clubs, and then it said, "Not you," like things I don't want to do this summer. Not you, definitely not you. And it was a picture of a wedding and a picture of a mom holding a child. Right? Tens of thousands of likes, shares, popular meme. That's ingrained in modern women, that mentality. Okay, another thing to be aware of. And it makes me wonder if, like, did women ever really want to have children? Did they ever want to be mothers? Maybe maybe they have been enslaved, and the critical theorist neo-Marxist types are right. You know, women's liberation is about getting out of the family and getting out of motherhood and all that stuff. Because it seems to me that a lot of them are definitely living like that. But then we see that most of the world, the happiest women in the world are the ones who live a traditional life with traditional gender roles. And the most unhappy women are the ones working in offices, chasing those qualifications in the rat race, alone, with cats, drinking wine to fall asleep at night. Okay. So I don't know. Do women know what they want? Ask Mel Gibson. Um, and then another thing that's really, really hard to acknowledge, but more than two women I know have spoken openly about this, that I know personally, and then I also see this in the culture in general. That what they'll do is, keep studying, keep going for that career or that dream job, and they're conscious of the fact that they're going to lose more and more fertility. So the idea is to freeze their eggs and then just get artificially inseminated by whoever, and raise their child as a single mom with no father at all. And in these moments, I tried really hard not to criticize people's lives, or how do you navigate this? This is a friend that you're talking to. This is someone that you care about. And I'll mention, you don't think that the kid, your potential kid, your future kid, will need a father figure? No. Why? I can do it. This is this empowerment indoctrination. You can have it all. No, you can't. Nobody thinks they can have it all. No guy thinks he can have it all. Every guy knows you have to make sacrifices. That to attain something, you need to work for it. And on that path of working for it, you're going to have to sacrifice something along the way. Women have been taught to think they can have it all. No. No one gets it all. Stop being sleuths. and stop thinking you can have it all. No one can, and that's fine. It's normal. Just be normal. And one of these female friends of mine that thinks that she can just, as she's approaching her 30s, freeze her eggs and then get artificially inseminated by some donor and raise the child on her own, is studying to be a psychologist. Hello. Studying to be a psychologist, psychiatrist. So she's well aware of the dire necessity for father figures in the life of a child, but she denies it. Because, of course, she's probably not being taught that. She's being taught that men are useless. That we can raise children like a village. So that's what we're dealing with, guys. And I say guys, referring to the guys and the gals watching this. Okay? And to the women who are watching this, I just said, don't be sluts. And don't think you can have it all. And seriously, if I can, give you one message, it's please use your peak years responsibly. We are different. Men and women age differently. We experience life differently. And you need to understand that your time that the window between 20 and 30, it's fantastic. And I get it. I understand your perspective of, no, I want to have fun. I want to live. I want to, rock this body and enjoy life. But I'm not sure that it has to be one or the other. You can enjoy life while not sleeping with a different guy every night, or hooking up with a different guy every time you go out to the bars. You can enjoy life and rock your body and be sexy and young, and while sorting out the wheat from the chaff and observing men and pair bonding with the best one, and listening to people like me who are telling you how to do it. Like, I'm not doing so in such video, but I hope that there are some women out there who are providing sound advice to young women, young girls, so that they aren't being told, yeah, girl, just go out and do your thing and ride the cock carousel. So I hope someone out there is saying, no, girls, this is how you tell good men from losers, and this is how you pair bond and maintain a relationship, etc. Hey, Pasha. I think my cat wants to go outside. She's kind of like a dog in that way. Ven aquí. Okay. Ven. Ven. Ven, ven, ven. Ven aquí. Okay. All right. So, we're talking about that. Now, the empowerment doctrine, working parents. Yeah, that's another thing too. Like this, the two-parent working thing. I worked a job once. It was right across the street from a daycare, and every day I would go in at the same time as a mom who would approach the daycare with her baby in a stroller, in a pram, and the baby was just every morning the same story, crying its eyes out, and crying its eyes out, and the mom would just leave it with the daycare worker, and then walk off in her power suit to whatever drab office job she works. I just kept thinking, like, that kid every day, crying its eyes out, its mom abandoning it every day, right? But that's the reality that we're in. We need to think about this, like, who's going to raise in a society, in a system where it does require, in most cases, both parents to work in order to support the family. What do we do about this? Okay. Yeah. Okay. So we're coming to the end here. Another thing I just want to point out, like, okay, with the myth of the trad European girl, especially. Sometimes I see these pictures that are used as the trad girl, and it's one of the things that actually inspired me to make this video. Um, a lot of the pictures are actually just from festivals that we have here in Europe, and yes, the women put on traditional garb, as do the men, but that doesn't mean that they are traditional trad wives. Okay, and one in particular really caught my attention. I saw on one of those typical accounts that like posts trad pictures and which way Western man, and it was photos of Spanish women wearing traditional flamenco Spanish dresses in one of the things that are called a feria, a fair, right? And I laughed. I got a little chuckle out of me because this is hammering home the fake trad or the myth of the trad life or the LARPing element of it, the Tradiphilia element of it, not really knowing what it is. It's just propaganda. So yes, during the day at the Spanish feria, the women wear traditional dresses and the men wear traditional suits and sombreros and pass around on horse and carriages. At night, those women take off the dresses, put on the miniskirts and the tight tops, and the high heels, and they twerk their asses off on the dance floor. They fuck behind the bushes, under a bridge, in a bathroom stall. Okay, it's a wild party at night. And so those three women that you saw with their lovely Spanish eyes and their Spanish hair, and they're wearing the nice uh, traditional dress, that doesn't make them trad wife material. Okay, more likely than not, they had a threesome that night, the night that that photo was taken with three other guys. Okay, I'm sorry that that I have to be the one that ruins your dream there. Okay, maybe not, maybe not. And again, I'm not countersignaling the idea that we could go back to wholesome festivals where people don't fuck in bathroom stalls and twerk on dance floors. I am from the days of my youth. I could see when I was like the only rock fan in high school, and everyone else was listening to rap and hip hop. I was just like, what is this? What We're white and we're listening to black music, and we're we're partaking of black culture that means nothing to us, and it's totally fake what you guys are doing. You're not black. This isn't music that speaks to any of us. What are you doing? And it's just gotten worse and worse over the years. This third worldification of our culture, and to the point now we've got white women twerking on dance floors. What are we doing? Stop it! Stop it! There is another way. It's the way I'm trying to live. Um, It's the way, we see things like Roosh V, who, again, the late Roosh, he's been banned from YouTube. He's got a similar, we have a similar story. We went one way, then we went another way, and now we're trying to go this other way, this final way. Um, and it's through our lived experience that we can speak and give wisdom. And again, I'm not trying to counter signal. I'm not trying to tell you how you should live your life. I'm very well aware of the temptations out there. And again, like I said earlier, I don't think we all should be virgins, get married, and only have sex with one person. Everyone's going to navigate that issue themselves. But I think that we need to find a happy medium. You don't have to be a virgin, and you should not have sexual experiences with hundreds of people, whether you're male or female. Okay, and then the last thought here was sort of going back to what I mentioned earlier about this idea that, why do we need to talk about this, and men leading females and getting more females in the movement, more women leaders and things like that to attract women to the movement. And I was reminded of that quote from Fight Club where Tyler Durden says, we're a generation raised by single moms. Maybe another female presence in our lives is not what we really need. So what I want to end on was, like I said, I don't know if I was going to be offering many solutions in this video, but maybe something that I've started to come to terms with is the fact that maybe I'm not meant to be a father. Maybe I'm not meant to get married. I was close. I saw the appeal of it. Didn't work out. Apart from that, I've never really seen the appeal to it. So maybe it's just not for me. Also, maybe I'm living in a time where, like, if I was living in the First World War, there was a population decrease. There was a baby bust. People weren't hooking up and having lots of babies during that time. Maybe I'm living in difficult times, and it's just not my time. It's not our time to have big families. We have lots of concerns to deal with. Lots of things are changing. This is a time of upheaval. Um, so maybe sort of offering a solution instead of just black bills and complaints. Instead of thinking about a way to fight globalism, global homo, secure the existence of our people and our children going forward. Um, Maybe it's not so much about getting married and going off to live on a farm and raise lots of babies. Maybe it's more about we need to buckle down. We need to be strong mentally, physically, spiritually. And I don't mean, go to the gym and get strong so that you can fight in the streets. Don't. Obviously, we can see from the video evidence that it doesn't matter if you're jacked or an MMA fighter. They attack like zombie hordes. They attack like jackals, hyenas in packs. If you don't have a weapon, preferably a firearm, don't fight. Run, de-escalate. Okay, it doesn't matter. Going to the gym, being strong, that's for your personal benefit. That's for you to be able to attract women because physical looks are important. Okay, that's for you to be able to walk into a room and command presence, and also so that people take you seriously. Okay, but it's not to be going out and getting fights. So when I say be strong physically, that's what I mean. Okay, and then also maybe we need to be thinking about putting ourselves in positions where, as the hard times make strong men, we become the strong men that make the good times. So we should be putting ourselves in positions to become lawyers. We should be, and I don't mean this to be like infiltrating. I'm not saying this that we need to infiltrate because the systems are just totally, totally subverted and corrupt. But I'm saying so that we have strong financial security, that we have the funds to live life on our own terms and not depend on this system. Okay, so we should be thinking about, instead of getting married and having lots of children, maybe more thinking about having really good jobs, like important, well-paying, high-octane alpha male jobs, or being tradesmen, craftsmen, useful jobs, perennially useful jobs, careers, trades, so that as everything's collapsing around us and as all there's this upheaval, we are in a good position. We can rise above all the wreckage and all this chaos and all this uncertainty, and we ourselves will be stable, secure, wealthy, powerful, and with wealth and power comes influence, and we do need to have more influence. So, in this sense, yes, it's not a counter signal. It's because I do love the white positivity with these images and this propaganda and this goal, Tradlife, revolt against the modern world. I hate the modern world as much as anyone else. Don't get me wrong, but as far as useful means to fight, to survive, to thrive, there are other ways. There are other ways, and one of them could be Okay, if you're a young man out there and you've got drive and ambition and you care about these issues, as a goal, yeah, think about attracting that great girl. And they are out there. Not all of them are the way I've described them, but many are, and we need to be careful. Okay, so get that great girl, lock her down, not literally, raise a family. Okay, but in order to get to that level, you have to be really something. So instead of worrying too much about that, and that was again going back to the impressionable young men, boys that could think, well, I gotta be doing this, I gotta be, I don't know, just walk that path, do the work, get strong, be Clint Eastwood, be James Bond, be Hercules, be Leonidas. We've got plenty of role models to follow. Get that great job, start that business, invent that app, become a lawyer, become a professor, get tenure, like whatever, because we need influence. We need influencers. I don't mean Instagram types. I mean real life influencers that can shape the conversation, push it in one direction, force open the Overton window. And when the hard times come and we're getting all this shit flung in our ways, we need lawyers to represent us. We're going to need lawyers to represent us. We're going to need people to have our back, people to bail us out, people to stand up for us that have a meaningful voice, that have an influential voice. And if all we're doing is saying, no, no, we're just going to retreat to the hills and live in a village and walk around in wheat fields wearing polka dot dresses and traditional festival garb, I'm sorry, guys. No, that's not viable. So, well, I think I'm done with that. Coming up to about 2 hours here. I think I've gone through all my talking points, kind of improvised along the way. And I know that having these conversations in real life, I know from having them in real life that people tend to respond positively to what I'm saying because it's just the reality of the situation. And most people have a lived experience similar to mine. Most men, certainly my age, have. But there's been some resistance in the past, typically from women, and especially from people of earlier generations, of older generations, who don't really know how things have changed and don't really know how the situation is. So if that's you, and you have a different opinion or a different set of advice, go ahead, share it. I welcome the pushback. We can talk about this, but I do think this is an important message, and I do know what my life has been like, and I do know what the life of people I care about, men, friends of mine, I've seen what happened to them, so you can expect some pushback of my own. All right. As always, take care, and I'll see you next time.